Hello, and welcome back to another edition of the Creamsicle Chronicle podcast. My name is JT Olson, coming to you live from the snowy shores of Lake Michigan. And man, I am watching this Chiefs Dolphins playoff game, and man, I can feel the cold through the TV. And I just look out the window and I can feel that cold. So, all y'all listening to this down in Tampa, down in Florida, appreciate that warm weather y'all got. Because it is nothing like that up here. We're going to be a whopping 6 degrees tomorrow, so enjoy the 70s. That's the dream. But we're not here to talk about the weather. You all know what the weather is. We're here to talk about your NFC South champion, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Doesn't that feel good? Doesn't that feel good to say? NFC South champion. And we're lucky because this is the third year in a row we get to say it. That's not something that happens all the time. There are divisions, they swap winners every year. NFC East, they never have repeat winners. Now, I live up here in NFC North country. The Lions haven't won their division in like 30 years. So to win it 3 times in a row, I don't care how good or bad the division is, that's significant. And it feels good to not only win the division, but win the division in a year that everyone wrote this team off. Everyone was picking against the Bucs. I mean, who didn't expect the Bucs to tank outside of Tampa? There was more talk about Caleb Williams when it came to the Bucs than it was the playoffs. There were some people who predicted the Bucs are going to get 1 or 2 wins. Looking at you, Peter King. And I still go back to it and I think, what's the analysis there? What's the reasons? What's the justification? And I read it and it's stupid stuff like, ha ha ha, the Super Bowl was worth it, but you guys suck now. And I think, why? This team is still really good. This roster is extremely talented. So I never understood why the Bucs are being written off the entire offseason. But they were predicted to win 2, 3, 4, 5 games nationally. NFL Network, ESPN, PFF, you look at it, Bucs are written off. Even Tampa Bay's own Trevor Sikkema wrote off the Buccaneers. So to have everyone sleep on this team and to still come back and do it again, it feels good. There's something special about that. It's expected to win the division when everyone predicts you to win 13, 14 games, like we did with Tom Brady. Winning the division was the expectation nationally. And, that felt good. It felt good to be that team that's getting talked about, getting publicity, living up to those expectations. But when you're wrote off, it feels that much better to shove it in people's face. So I'm happy. This year's had ups, it's had downs. It's been frustrating. I've complained about the coaching. I've complained about the quarterback play. There's a lot of things I've complained about. But that's the fun of it. That's why you play the games. The games aren't just paper matchups. I looked at this team, I looked at this roster, I looked at their opponents. Beginning of the year, I thought, this team's going to win 10 games. All right, so they only won 9. They underwhelmed a little bit. But in the end, they did what I expected them to do. They won their division. They are going to the playoffs. And we are just 48 hours less away from playing in a playoff game, from hosting a playoff game. So I'm excited. It's not exactly the path I thought they'd take to get there, but they got there, and that's all that matters. I want to touch a little bit on the Panthers game before we talk about the playoffs. The playoffs are what really matters, but I'm a little concerned about the offense after watching that Panthers game. Obviously, didn't score a touchdown. Only managed 3 field goals, 9 points, against a Panthers team that is dead and buried. They've been dead and buried for a couple of months. So, you want a stronger showing when you're going against the worst team in the NFL. But keep in mind, this Panthers team had a good defense. They've got Derek Brown in the middle. And I always listen to the opposing team's broadcast because I like to get the other perspective. I know what we are looking at as Bucs fans. So I like to hear what the other team is looking at. What are they trying to do to us? Where do they think they have an advantage? And man, the way they talked about their nose tackle, Derek Brown, they love that guy. He's a special dude. And I understand why. He had over 100 tackles this year. That's right. Take that in for a minute. 100 tackles. Not a big deal if you're talking about Levante David or Devin White. Even Antoine Whitfield. Yeah, 100 tackles. Good job. Nice season. We're talking about a nose tackle. That's the guy who lives between the guards. He really is a good player. So I'm not mad that the offense had trouble with this Panthers defense. It's a good defense. Jeremy Chin, Brian Burns, J.C. Horn, really good young corner. They got players on that defense. Don't forget that. Even in the last regime, their defense was respectable. It's the offense that's terrible. Did I want more than what we saw? Definitely. Especially going into playoffs, where your last two games have now been kind of stinkers offensively. But you got there. You did what you had to do. It was a gritty, grimy kind of win, and that really embodies what this team's about. Grit. It's a defensive-minded team. They want to run the ball. They got a quarterback who would stick his face into a fan if his coach asked him to. That's grit. That's toughness. This isn't the razzle-dazzle flash that we got with Tom Brady. We're not throwing for 400 yards a game. We got to grind out wins. And that's what they did against the Panthers. It's not pretty, but that's football. Christopher Cole, I see your comment. You hope tomorrow's games are better than today's. Yeah, I was super excited for these playoff games today. There were two games that I thought would be closer, especially that first one, the Browns and the Texans. But both have turned into blowouts. I'm assuming this Miami game still is. It was like 25-7 when I left fourth quarter. So Chiefs are pulling away. I'm assuming they're still ahead comfortably. It's hard to move the ball when it's 0 degrees, negative degrees. So hoping for a little bit more tomorrow. Tomorrow we got, I think it's Packers and Cowboys at 4:30, Lions and Rams at 7:30. Those should both be fun. I think the Packers are going to keep it close-ish for a little while, at least in the first half. But I think that one's going to be a little bit of a laugh or two. And then I think the Detroit Rams game, that's the hardest one to predict. I think that's the one that's the most interesting this weekend outside of the Bucs, which, we obviously have a vested interest in. So I think tomorrow's games will be better. But more than anything, I want this Bucs game to be better. Or if not better, I want us to be on the right end of this playoff game. I want us to be the Texans in this scenario. I want us to be the Chiefs in this scenario, where it's the fourth quarter and we can think, yeah, we can take out Baker. We're good. Let him rest up those ribs. Let him rest up that ankle. We're up by, 3 touchdowns. That's the dream. I don't think it happens because that's not who the Bucs are. But if it's going to be a laugher, I hope it's a laugher in our favor. And honestly, I don't exactly know what to expect from this game. Not because of, the X's of the O's, we kind of know what that is. We saw that week 3. Eagles are strong in the trenches. Bucs have a good defensive line. We're going to want to stop the run. We know all those things. But what I'm really unsure about is the mental state of this Philadelphia team we're about to play. All week I've been listening to Philadelphia radio, and it is wild. What this team is going through right now, where their head is at, it is insanity going into a playoff game. You got players coming out and say they've been coasting for the last 2 months. You've got players who are deleting their social media and scrubbing it of anything Eagles related. You've got a quarterback who can't throw a football and is telling the media, you don't really know what's going on here. You've got a whole city calling for the coach's job. I mean, if I were an Eagles fan, I'd be really concerned about the mental state of my team and about them just absolutely imploding. And they have over the last 6 games. They were 10-1, comfortable position to win their division. Really, they had a stranglehold on it. And they've gone 1-5 in the last 6 games down the stretch, including a blowout loss to the Giants last week. That's the Giants with the backup quarterback, Tyrod Taylor. Eagles are in a bad way right now. And if this was just, pure football, X's and O's, line up and play your man, I think this would be a really competitive game. I think Carlton Davis would match up well against A.J. Brown. I think Devin White's someone who can contain Hurts in the pocket. Our defensive line matches up with their offensive line really fun way. There's a lot of reasons to think if all things equal, the Bucs can win this game, even as a 3-point home underdog. But that's not what we're looking at. We're looking at a team whose quarterback is hurt. Jalen Hurts has not been the running threat he was in the past. Now, there's speculation that he's been playing through an injury all year. Now he's got a hand injury on his throwing hand with his middle finger. That's a disadvantage for the Eagles. A.J. Brown is going to miss this game with a knee injury. That's a huge disadvantage from the Eagles. And then you throw all that mental stuff on top of it. I really feel like that changes the dynamic of the expectation for this game. As a game that you think the Bucs have a decent chance in. Even if they don't win, you expect them to show well. You don't expect them to fall on their face like they did last year. Competitive football game. Because these are not the teams they were in week 3. But that's not what we're looking at. This is a game where now I kind of raise that expectation. And I think we all should. This is the game the Bucs should win. It's a game the Bucs need to win. Can I tell you that the Bucs are the more talented team? Don't know that I can. I don't think they're necessarily more talented than the team that went to the Super Bowl last year. But I can tell you that they're the better team right now. Bucs have won 5 out of 6. Eagles have lost 5 out of 6. I think that in a vacuum, that tells you all you need to know. Baker Mayfield is hurt, playing with a rib injury, playing with an ankle injury. Jalen Hurts is hurt. These 2 teams are banged up at quarterback. I think that kind of balances the scale, so I don't think there needs to be any excuse for this Bucs team. You got to find a way to get this done. And considering they have no A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts is injured, you expect your defense to show out pretty well. Crowd the box, shut down the run. You dedicate extra attention to Devonta Smith. You pay attention to Dallas Goedert, their tight end. They're 2 big weapons without A.J. Brown. Offensively, you got to move a ball. This Eagles defense has been really bad. Just shockingly bad. And you talk about all the names that are on there. Darius Slay, Kevin Byard, James Bradbury, Darius Leonard, Shaq Leonard? I don't remember what he goes by. He used to be one, now he's the other one. Jalen Carter, widely regarded as the best player in the draft this year. Jordan Davis, who was a first-round defensive tackle last year. They got pass rushers everywhere. I mean, there's every reason that this defense should be good, but they're awful right now. Matt Patricia, kind of their defensive overseer, is a train wreck. That's the best way to say it. He's awful at what he does. He won a Super Bowl with the Patriots as their defensive coordinator, but I'm pretty sure that was the Eagles Super Bowl where they put up like 40 points. Then he went to the Lions as their head coach, and Lions had historically bad defenses, so it should come as no surprise. He takes over the defense in Philadelphia. Defense in Philadelphia is bad. They're allowing deep touchdowns all over the place. Their linebackers look confused. The pass rush isn't as good as you expect it to be. So if Baker Mayfield is good to go, you could probably do just about whatever you want. Throw it deep to Mike Evans. Is that going to be the best way to move the ball? Probably not. But they're allowing chunk plays with, you guessed it, miscommunication in the back end. We've heard that before. Eagles are going through it too. I think we'll also find a lot of success with Chris Godwin. I think this is going to be a big Chris Godwin heavy game. And he's really been underutilized a lot this year. He crossed 1,000-yard mark, which, good for him. All flowers to Chris Godwin. But he really could have done more if he was featured more. And we've seen that in the past. Now, he's a problem over the middle. You look at a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's an all-pro for Detroit this year. Chris Godwin is that same guy. I mean, they're in so many ways images of each other. They're both monsters in the slot. Tough, physical, good hands. Chris Godwin can have that kind of season. 1,500 yards, 10 touchdowns. I think against this Philadelphia defense, who is not strong at linebacker, and they're going to have a couple of safeties out this game. With Sidney Brown, their rookie safety, is out. He's out for the rest of the year. And their other safety, Blankenship. I mean, they're thin at safety. Even with Kevin Byard, who's at times been the best safety in the NFL over the course of his career. So I think utilizing Godwin as a slot receiver is going to be a big advantage for the Bucs in this game if they choose to do that. I also think this has potential to be a Cade Otton game. Again, linebackers and safeties. Those are typically your guys who cover the tight end. It's where the Eagles are weak right now. Get that tight end involved. Same with Rachaad White, who covers the running back, linebackers, and safeties. And we know what Rachaad White is with the ball in his hands. You get it to him in space, he's dangerous. He's as good as anyone in the game. So I really think as long as the trigger man is good to go, this offense is good to go. Because we can't do what we did last time. Week 3, it was a disaster. It was handoffs up the middle all day. Pound the rock with Rachaad White. Run right at that first-round nose tackle. Run right at that first-round 3-tech. With an interior offensive line that is not good for us. All love to Robert Hainsey and Aaron Stinney. We won a Super Bowl with him as our starter. Those are below average players at their position. Those are guys you're looking in the first round to draft their replacement. So to have them be the focal point of your attack against the teeth of that Philadelphia defense, no joke that plan's going to blow up in your face. And it did. To the tune of less than 175 total yards when these teams played last. Can't be that way. Cannot try that same approach. It was a terrible idea then. It would be a terrible idea now. So you got to do what you do best. You've got to throw the ball. You've got an all-pro wide receiver in Mike Evans. Shout out Mike Evans, getting that second-team all-pro. Well-deserved. You've got a Pro Bowl caliber guy in Chris Godwin. You've got one of the best pass-catching running backs in the NFL. Use them. I don't know where exactly Baker is in his health. He's listed as questionable for this game, but we know he's going to play. He's got to be effective. That's it. If he's not effective, this game becomes real difficult to win. And even at 100%, I really think you just got to muster up 24 points. I think if you get 24 points in this game, you're going to win. Without A.J. Brown on the other side, with Jalen Hurts injured, 24 should be enough. I think that's a fair expectation. A defense that's given up plays everywhere. You've got playmakers everywhere. This is the biggest stage. You got to get it done. This has to be where you carve out your legacy. And I think a couple of Bucs have a really chance to put their stamp on this game, not only in this playoffs, but as their Bucs career on the line. And it won't define their career. I don't want to say that this is a make or break game for any Bucs player in terms of their career. But in terms of legacy, this is going to be a legacy game for some guys. I'm thinking about Lavonte David. Could be his last game with the Bucs. Against a really good offensive line and a running back who is a Pro Bowler, DeAndre Swift. He's a good player. Against a quarterback who can run. This is the kind of game that Lavonte David has to step up. Go get yourself 15 tackles, 2 tackles for a loss. Maybe get an interception. If Jalen Hurts can't throw the ball effectively, his timing's a little off, throw it behind the tight end, you take that ball. You take it to the house. It has potential to be a career-defining moment for Lavonte David in some ways. Mike Evans could be his last game in Tampa. You'd love to see him get another touchdown. Led the NFL in touchdown catches this year. The stage is its biggest. The lights are the brightest. Monday night, playoffs. Go show the world why you're a Hall of Famer. Why you have 10 consecutive seasons. Why you're creeping in on 100 career touchdowns. We saw it from Tyreek Hill tonight in a Dolphins game that was just an absolute rock fight for their offense. Only 7 points. But you know what? Those 7 points came from a bomb by Tyreek Hill. Great players shine the brightest on the biggest stage. Those are the Bucs' greatest players. I don't know if they're the best players because, Tristan Wirfs is there. Antoine Winfield is there. They are in the conversation. But in terms of legacy, in terms of Hall of Fame resume, those are the greatest players the Bucs have. So they got to have a game. They got to be that guy. They've been there. They've done that. They've won a Super Bowl. This is their time. Use that experience. If the worst happens, if the Bucs don't get this done, we're going to have some really difficult conversations regarding the futures of guys like Mike Evans and Lavonte David, both of whom I want back. No question about that. But difficult decisions are going to come. You're going to bring back Baker Mayfield. He's had a really good year. Maybe. I guess part of that depends on, are you going to bring back this coaching staff? Dave Canales has done a really good job bringing in this system, this style of offense. And as a result of that, Baker's had his best year. Working with Dave Canales, Geno Smith had his best year last season. So Dave Canales, despite my criticisms about his play sequencing, when he works with a quarterback, he gets the best out of that quarterback. That's a reflection of the system he's brought to Tampa. It's a very quarterback-friendly system. It's not like the Bruce Arians system where you put a quarterback out there and you said, hey, you throw the ball. You throw it 45 yards, you throw it 25 yards, you throw it 15 yards. Don't talk to me about a check down. Don't talk to me about a hot route. Here's your play. You air it out, you score points. Only great quarterbacks can really do that. Jameis did it to a degree, but it came with 30 interceptions. And Tom Brady's the best to ever do it. It's not an easy offense for a quarterback to run. This offense, very quarterback friendly. And, we see the same type of offense in Houston. And we saw what CJ Stroud as a rookie did this year. We've seen it in Seattle. Salvaged Geno Smith's career. I don't think there's going to be any kind of change at the offensive coordinator unless, one, he's hired away by the Panthers, who he has a head coaching interview for, or two, the Bucs just clean house. Todd Bowles, thank you for your service. We'll always remember you positive way, but you're not the man for this team. That's a decision that could be made if the Bucs don't win. Because like I said, I view the Bucs having underachieved a little bit this year. I expected 10 wins, they got 9. Not a big deal because they still won the division. I'm not going to split hairs over it. But, if I'm looking at these games, I think they left a lot of meat on the bones. I think they really could have and should have beat the Texans when they played. I think they could have and should have beat the Falcons the first time around. Beat the Colts. Really felt like the Bucs let a lot of games slip through their fingers this year. And, it's not a huge deal because I think they would have been the 4th seed either way. But when you're really evaluating a coach, do you want a guy who's going to let winnable games get away? A guy who's going to underachieve be the guy to lead your team? I don't know. I mean, that's obviously not the way I would want it spun if I was Todd Bowles. Painting it like that, you definitely don't want that guy. But he is a guy who has won 2 division titles in Tampa. He's gone to the playoffs twice. There's something to like about him, but also keep in mind the team he's inherited. It's a team that won the Super Bowl 2 years before he took over and a really great shot at a second Super Bowl. I think he deserves a lot of criticism for his game management last year, but at the same time, he got stuck with Byron Leftwich, not a guy he picked. Same with several other coaches on that coaching staff. Those are Bruce Arians' guys, not his guys. So I didn't want to judge him too harshly overall last year. I wanted him to have a chance to kind of handpick his staff and see what he could do. He did okay. He did enough. But it wasn't great either. And then some people will say, well, he was stuck with $80 million in dead cap. That's true. I can't say anything about that. That's 100% factual. Imagine if the Bucs had $80 million more to play with. What could this team look like? What could Todd Bowles' record look like? I mean, it'd be better, I'm sure. But at the same time, you also have Jason Light, one of the best general managers in the NFL. A guy who has provided you with Tristan Wirfs on a rookie contract, Antoine Winfield on a rookie contract, Baker Mayfield at dirt cheap prices, who has been a good quarterback for you this year. Luke Gedeke, who's been one of the better right tackles in the NFL, on a rookie contract. Cody Mauch on a rookie contract. Rashad White on a rookie contract. Kalijah Kancey, Yaya Diaby. All these really good players. Devin White, all on rookie contracts. So yeah, the Bucs have a lot of dead money. They also have a lot of really valuable, cheap players who are the foundation of this team, and you're paying them hardly nothing. You're going to have to pay those guys next year. That $80 million is going to get eaten up fast. Blank check to Antoine Winfield here. You got to up your price for Baker. You want to bring Mike Evans back. You want to bring Levante David back. Maybe you want to go out and sign a guard or a center. I mean, just like that $80 million is gone. And you're bringing back essentially the same team. What can you do with that team, Todd? Can it be better than this year? With another first-place schedule? With another year where everyone in the division is getting a top 10 pick except for you? And it's not going to get easier. So, honestly, I could see it going either way. If the Bucs lose on Monday, if they fire Todd Bowles, I wouldn't be surprised at all. If they kept him, I wouldn't be surprised about that either. There's something to be said about stability, about the defense that Todd Bowles has created here. The culture that this team has. Todd Bowles is a part of that. Those are all strengths of this organization. So to hit the reset button, that would be, that would not be a good thing for this team. Not in the short term. But if you get the right guy, it could be a good thing in the long term. So we will see what happens there. honestly, I really just hope the Bucs beat the Eagles and we don't have to worry about it. You beat the Eagles, Todd Bowles is coming back. I don't think there's any two ways about that. You win in the second round, Todd Bowles is coming back for a couple of years. You buy yourself more than 1 year like that. Because then we're talking about potentially an NFC championship game. You don't want to fire the coach that just went to the NFC championship game. Oh, they take a step back the year after that? Well, he just went to the NFC championship game. Let's see what we can do in year 4. You got some cushion there, some wiggle room. But you got to get this one done. A team that's fallen apart, a team that's banged up, a team that is poorly coached, especially on the defensive side. I don't care if they're more talented on paper or not. I don't care if Baker Mayfield is hurt or not. You got to get it done. So with that, I do want to move on to bold predictions. Co-host Garrett Ballard and I, we typically do 2 bold predictions a show, 2 for each of us. Garrett's not here, so I'm going to give mine. My first one, I touched on a little bit earlier. It's going to be revolving around Lavonte David. I am going to go 15 tackles and a takeaway. I just think it's going to be that kind of game. I think the Eagles are going to want to run the ball, and Lavonte David is a beast. He's a future Hall of Famer. He should have been an All-Pro this year. He's the most underrated player probably in NFL history. I could not imagine a player who's been more underrated. A guy who's been one of the top 3 linebackers in the 21st century, and he's got 1 Pro Bowl. He's getting beat out by Bobby Wagner. And this isn't even prime Bobby Wagner we're talking about. This is like Rams and second time around with the Seahawks, Bobby Wagner. And Lavonte David's always been better than Bobby Wagner. Especially now where Lavonte David is still playing at a very high level and Bobby's taking a step back. So this is going to be one of those games where he reminds the world of who he is. We saw it today with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah for the Browns. He was everywhere in that game. He was everywhere, sniffing out screen passes, tackles for loss. He's been the best linebacker at that in the NFL this year, tackles for loss. JOK. Number 2, Lavonte David. He lives in the backfield. He's got unreal football intelligence. I think he's going to put it all on display in this game. 15 plus tackles in a run-heavy, sloppy game. My other bold prediction, number 2, Bucs are going to force a pair of fumbles. Not just 1 fumble, but 2 fumbles. Jalen Hurts, he's someone he struggles with blitz pickup. And Todd Bowles, he loves to blitz. So I think Todd Bowles is going to be in his head. I think he's going to confuse Jalen. I think Jalen's going to try and tuck the ball, try and run. And if you can't grip the ball, then it's going to be on the ground. And in a game that's expected to have a little bit of rainy conditions with a dislocated middle finger that's all swole up, yeah, I think he's going to put it on the ground a couple of times. So if he's getting sacked or if he's just trying to buy time and, he's just loses the ball, I can definitely see that. So those are 2 bold predictions. Lavonte's getting a takeaway in 15 plus, and the Bucs are forcing 2 fumbles. And then, of course, I got score prediction. And I see score prediction in the chat. Game on says 27-19 Bucs. Yeah, I'm with you. I think this is going to be a Bucs win. I think it should be a Bucs win. I think they get it done. I do. And I try and keep it as in the middle as possible when I'm evaluating this team. I try and be as non-biased as I can. I'll say it when they're playing bad, and I'll say it when they're playing good. Right now, the Bucs are unified. The Bucs are all on the same page. They have a shared purpose. They're playing for each other. That locker room, the vibes there, they're great. The leadership is great. And it is the opposite of that in Philadelphia. So even if the Bucs aren't as talented, they're the more united, better team. So I think they're going to win this game. My prediction, I think the Bucs are going to win 23-20. 23-20. Because I think the Eagles are going to be able to move the ball a little bit. Devontae Smith, still a really good receiver. He's the number 2 on that team, but he's still really good. Dallas Goedert, he's a really good tight end. Eagles have a really good offensive line. They have a good running back. They still have a lot of positives on offense. Even without A.J. Brown, even with Hurts banged up. So I think they're going to score a little bit. But the way the Eagles defense is playing, I think the Bucs are going to be able to squeak by them. So that's my score prediction. 23-20 Buccaneers victory. That's what I want it to be. I hope that's what it goes. I hope it goes 45-0 Bucs. Don't stress me out. Christopher Cole, you said it. Just win. I don't care if it's 2-0. Bucs win, they move on. That's what the playoffs is. I say this phrase a lot when I'm talking March Madness, but it's all about survive and advance. You win this game, if it's ugly, it doesn't matter. Next week you go to Dallas, or you go to Detroit, or you go to San Francisco, and you get another game. And guess what? You have a chance to win that one ugly. No one cares if it's pretty. Style points do not apply in the playoffs. It's a W or it's an L. No one's going to look up the final score of the Super Bowl, just who won it. So that's all that matters. Get it done. Win the game. Better team. You're at home. You're healthier. No excuses. No excuses. Game on, I see your comment. Canales needs to call a good game. Yeah, Canales, he's the thing that makes me the most nervous about this game. Because as much as I love the system he's brought to Tampa, as much as I love the intangible he has, the accountability, the leadership, he's obviously a very bright guy. Sometimes his play sequencing is really rough. And I was fine with it early in the year. First year play caller, growing pains, I get all of that. I'm fine, I'm patient, I understand the process. But we're going into what is now week 19. You can't be making the same mistakes you made in week 9. You can't be trying to establish the run down 2 touchdowns in the second half. You've got to play to your strengths. You've got to attack your opponent's weaknesses. I don't need a dive up the middle on first down and a dive up the middle on second down. It's not the 1940s. We don't do that anymore. You can do that once in a while. If you want to spread it out and then hand it to White in a light box, hit him up the gut, that's fine. But we're not looking at Mike Allstott here. This is not a team that's meant to bang the ball between the tackles. It's not how they're built. So don't try to. It sounds so easy to say. It sounds so common sense, but it feels like weekly we're seeing things that are nonsensical. But there are times when it's really good. I think about that Packers game. It's a well-called game. Canales was in his bag. Jacksonville, another pretty well-called game. There have been moments of brilliance this year from Dave Canales. He doesn't have the experience yet. He doesn't have the rhythm yet, and I don't know if you can ever really develop that if you're not born with it. But if you are going to develop it, it's going to come with experience. You've got basically a full season under your belt. You don't have to be perfect, but you have to call a good game. You can't be the reason the Bucs are held back. If we are looking at this game afterwards and we're looking for a reason why it fell apart, and that reason is the offensive coordinator, that's a problem. I don't think it'll go that way, but we all know there have been games this year when it has been that way. as recently as 2 weeks ago. That Saints game was a disaster of play calling. Just a train wreck. Last week wasn't great either. And, I know it was windy conditions. I know Baker was hurt, but there was also some play calling issues. Not what you want going into the playoffs, but hey, you're there. Now's your chance to make some noise. What happened last week doesn't matter. All that matters is Monday night at 8 o'clock. So, this time next week, I'm going to come here and I'm going to be talking about our next opponent. I'll be talking about the Lions. I'll be talking about the Cowboys. Talking about the 49ers. What that matchup looks like. Or I'm going to be talking about draft prospects. Talking about how our rookies looked this year. Talking about what free agents might be available. It's going to be a very different conversation next week. Game On says making adjustments will be a big part of this game. Yeah. I wish I trusted this coaching staff a little bit more to do that. They've done it at times, but it's not consistent. And for a head coach that has been a head coach this is his 5th season as a head coach, yeah, you'd expect a little bit more in terms of adjustments. Dave Canales, you've got a full season under your belt now. Congratulations. This is all post-season. You got to be able to make adjustments against a defense that we know is not good right now. You have to be able to see that. You have to be able to attack that. What they come out and counter you with, you have to have a counter for that. You have to be 2 steps ahead. It's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. But you know what? That's the nature of the job. If you do it, Bucs are going to be in good shape. If they don't, going to have a lot to say about it. So, going to wrap it up there. Want to give a shout out to Bucs Report, being my host platform for this podcast. You can find all of my written work there at bucsreport.com. I want to give a shout out to my co-host, Garrett Ballard. He couldn't be with us tonight. Wishing him the best. I know his work schedule is really crazy right now. But I know he's going to be watching this game. Don't know if he's going to be in the press box for this game. He does get press credentials. But, if he does, I'll be sure to blast it out there on the Twitter. You can follow us on Twitter. Our podcast is at the Creamsicle Crew. I am JT Olson. You can follow me at Icewater Olson. My co-host is Garrett Ballard. You can follow him at something with the last name Ballard. I forgot what his Twitter handle is. But until next week, go Bucs, beat the Birds, fire the cannons. Let's go.